All right, so let's begin. I'm kind of going a little bit more off the cuff. It's been a pretty interesting week, very, very dynamic, astrologically as well as personally in my life. And I'm not going to be as structured this time, but I decided not to do the new moon a few days in advance because I thought to myself, well, it's just a bunch of Aries. It's the same thing I've been kind of saying for the past, it's this huge forward movement. There's a lot of momentum moving forward. I'll just share a little bit about me and my experience with this new moon. This new moon has been really interesting for me because instead of, at first I felt, that Aries confidence, that forward moving confidence. And then as the day went on, it just completely flattened out. And so what I'm thinking that is it has more to do with the Venus retrograde. Venus is the planet of pleasure, and so with it being retrograde, it's kind of like the how can I say the typical, even though I'm about to use a term that Saturn is associated with, but the typical boundaries are turned off for Venus. So I find definitely with Venus in Aries, I find you find pleasure wherever you can find it, and whatever that means to you. And so I've been revisiting, or reviewing some things that I found pleasure with, just in pure unadulterated honesty, which is what Aries rules, just pure honesty. And but also I kind of felt like a deactivation and kind of a return to an upsurging of like insecurities, and like all these insecurities just coming at me all at once, and it was just really interesting. So I think the moon definitely had something to do with it, but I think it also has something to do with Venus's backward movement. So you got the Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Venus, and Uranus all in Aries. So it's all this forward movement except for Venus. Venus is moving backwards, so it's kind of creating this. It's definitely about to go into Pisces, so it's going to traverse that time when Venus was in Pisces. It's going to meet up with Chiron within the next few weeks, which is going to definitely come back into healing relationships and healing our relationship with ourselves. Venus and Aries, Venus's relationships, Aries is the self. Healing our relationship with ourselves so that we can heal our relationship with the world. Meanwhile, the Sun, Moon, or the Sun, Mercury, and Uranus are still going to be going forward. Jupiter is deactivated, or rather retrograded, opposing the moon at the moment that I'm making this. I'm making this reading, this recording. So basically, there's this kind of. That's also something that could be what it is. That feeling of. I don't know what you've been feeling, but I definitely felt kind of a backward step, not more confidence, but less confidence in the latter half of yesterday. And so there's that Jupiterian influence, that Piscean influence, and Venus is coming, which is where Venus is definitely very strong. Also, the Mercury is trine Saturn, so there could be like some evidence of like bad news, or something that's like kind of wakes you up and jolts you back to reality. That's also something that could be bringing in like this. Saturn is like insecurities, things that limit you. That could be a reason for my personal experience with that. But if you're having an experience with that, so definitely, and then also Mercury is conjunct Uranus. So there's this need to get back down to reality, get back down to like what's really going on, looking at your world as it is, meaning on a practical level, but also empirically, and then but also looking at the ideal, looking at what you want to change it into, looking at the ideal that you want to fight for. And so, or the ideal yeah, basically fight for, because Aries. So the one you want to fight for, the one that you want to champion, the one that you personally want to live and basically endure in. So there's that. And then, like I said, I'm going really off the cuff here. Now, we have Pluto squaring the moon right now, so there's that huge thing. Like, there's just a lot of things popping up. They're just reminding you of that you have a choice between your insecurities or between empowerment, because Pluto is the planet of empowerment. But it's in Capricorn, which is the sign of limitations and insecurities. So it's basically becoming empowered through a healthy understanding of your limitations and insecurities. But you always have a choice. You always have a choice to choose the positive. And Aries is a very positive sign. It's aggressively positive. And we also have, we have a whole bunch of other planets having relations with one another. But one of the interesting ones is Neptune and Pluto are kind of have a little thing going on. They're sextile each other, generally sextile. And so what this is basically, I see this as kind of sorting out the bullshit from the real shit. And Pluto is very much a realist, especially in Capricorn. But Neptune in Pisces is definitely not a realist. But in Pisces, it's definitely again, like I've been saying, when there was a stellium in Pisces, there's definitely a temptation to give into addictions and weaknesses. But with this sextile, the Pluto is basically saying, hey, here's kind of what's holding you back, and you can continue to go on that path, or you can and give into negative thoughts, and basically, because addiction comes from negative thinking, you can give into your addictions and negative thinking, or you can change the dream and think positively. But it's not easy, especially with this particular setup here. And with Neptune being opposite North Node, generally speaking, I mean, it's kind of outside of the orb, but there's, you got Neptune in Pisces, North Node in Virgo, and the only thing that's really going to keep you going is, maintaining, your awareness and organization of your life, your thoughts, your duty, your service to yourself and humanity. And keeping yourself abreast of the proper channels of information, keeping yourself abreast of those things, constantly researching, educating yourself, learning more, whether that means going within, but it has to be kind of, because it's Virgo, it has to be of an empirical nature. It can't just be this amorphous understanding that can't really be proven. That's Pisces. It has to be something that has some empirical value. Meaning, like, if you're doing some kind of internal work, you want it to have some practical application in the real world. So we also have North Node kind of, not having the best of times with Lilith, and so your forward progression, or the evolutionary energy that you can apply to your life, which is the North Node, has to stop and take into account the shadow that is within you and within the collective, and that shadow is going to constantly creep up and constantly, Lilith is the dark side, Lilith is the shadow, and on one hand, it could be that shadow that is that you give into because of fear, and that because it's in Sagittarius, it promises this world of expansion and freedom, and it looks really nice, and it's forbidden or whatever, but it's a trick. Or you could use the dark side to looking at yourself, looking completely unabashedly at all the things that you find taboo about yourself, society looking at itself, all the things it finds taboo about itself there, and also healing that, looking at that, and not necessarily giving into it, but looking at it with the mind of a sage, looking at it with a wise mind, and just kind of like observing it and not giving into it. The sun is also, friendly with Lilith right now. So basically, you're going to see a lot of open displays, open behavioral, open dark behavior, whether that be from you, whether that be from the world that you see, whether that be from your friends. I'm definitely seeing it in the geopolitical landscape, which I won't get into here. So it's just really, really an amazing time that we're living in right now. We could say that Neptune and Lilith aren't really having that great of a time, but it's not really within the orb. But I can still go into it. Even though Neptune kind of represents, it can represent kind of a backwards energy giving into, limitation, giving into addiction. It's really not getting along with this dark side either, because Neptune kind of just wants everything, especially in Pisces, just wants everything to be smooth and easy. And then there's this fiery beast, demon woman that's coming out of the fiery pits of hell. It's just kind of creating all kinds of crap for everybody. And it can either be seen as something to look at, like I said before, or something that you're going to succumb to because of your own fears and insecurities. Let's see, what else do we have here? I'm trying to make sure I see what we have here. Pretty much everything else is it's basically, with all this Aries, you're basically the warrior but you're the warrior, but with the Saturn and the Pluto and the Neptune and the Lilith, it's like basically you're a lone soldier going into the darkness of the cave where there is no light, and you have nothing to rely on except your own fortitude and your own skills that you've learned in whatever capacity that you have learned to be a warrior, whether it be mentally, whether it be emotionally, whether it be physically, whether it be spiritually. You're going to have to bring all those tools to bear, because you're going straight into the darkness. A lot of it, and Aries loves to fight, so you're kind of really looking forward to it. But with Mars being in Taurus, you're kind of looking at what you're fighting with, what you know to be tried and true tactics. You're looking at what the status quo, you're looking kind of at the status quo, like what would practically work here? What would actually work here? And because the Taurus and the Virgo, North Virgo is definitely, there's an Earth, forward movement of Earth, saying, hey, what's really the most practical way to solve this problem here? What's the most practical way to navigate through this? If you don't know what to do nothing. If you can only do a small thing, do a small thing. But it has to be forward movement, and it has to be with your full passion. So that's pretty much what's going on there. And let's see if we have anything else. We got Lilith and Saturn, but they're definitely very far away from one another as far as an orb is concerned. But the Lilith and Saturn are in the same sign, so that Lilith Saturn energy coming like really, really strongly. You could definitely find yourself falling into some traps. So, your Aries, you're the lone warrior with the sword and shield going into the dark cave. You only have one little torch, and your biggest downfall will be the traps of your own self, meaning like falling back into, addictions, to dramas, to food, to whatever, falling back into that, thinking that it's something that's really, oh no, maybe this is right. And with it being a Sagittarius, Jupiter being a Libra, retrograde, you're thinking that you're expanding into some things that will help you connect with other people, but you're trying to enact that. You're trying to make that. You're trying to actualize that. But with retrogrades, actualization is not for retrogrades. Retrogrades are for reviewing and not for actualization. When the planet goes direct and comes out of the shadow of retrograde, out of the retrograde shadow, then you can start beginning to enact or manifest certain things. So you're thinking, oh, if you fall back into a pattern, or you're reviewing a drama, or you're reviewing a relationship that you had, especially with Venus being retrograde as well, it's like, oh yes, maybe I can maybe I can actually manifest this, and this is something where I can, grow and expand in. I can, this old group of friends, or this group of friends that, represented an old group of friends that I left, but they remind me of an old group of friends, and they still have this and that and the other, and that's usually not something that would help me grow, but now I can see how it would help me grow, and now I can just kind of interact with these people, or I can, eat this kind of food, or I can do this, or I can do that, and it's a trick, it's a trap. If you do fall into that, forgive yourself, but just know that it's not something that needs to be actualized. It's something, if you ever fall back into a trap, it's so that you can go through the process of reviewing what that's like physically. But with the Saturn there, it's probably best, I wouldn't say that you don't, I would just say if you do fall back into it, try to be as disciplined and focused as possible, and find other ways to, because Sagittarius rules, expansion, meaning there are a lot of different ways that you can apply the Saturn energy. There's a lot of different ways that you can perceive the Saturn energy and incorporating it into your life, so you don't fall back into the trap or into the path. But just because the Saturn and Lilith and Pluto is really coming at, and this retrograde energy is really coming at you, who's representing the Aries energy now, it doesn't mean that you need to become depressed or become dark or become whatever. You need to continue to have a positive outlook on life. You need to continue to choose positivity, continue to choose empowerment, and continue to choose forward movement, upward movement, positive thought, progression towards source, progression towards spirit. Continue to pursue that. Obviously, even when it's hard, you can't always listen to your emotions. Even though the moon is in Aries, Aries is like, well, I want to do it. Well, that's just what I want to do, and that's not always what needs to be done. But again, if you do kind of slip, use it as a springboard to just simply review, and don't let it put too much of a damper on your momentum in growing yourself and empowering yourself and bringing yourself more and more into the light. Let's check to see if we have anything else going on. Looking at Uranus here. The only thing is I can see Mercury has a relationship with Uranus and Saturn, so it's definitely an awareness of the darkness, but also an awareness of how things can be, and becoming very, you might start becoming very passionate about how things can be. So again, Venus is going to be going into Pisces, I think around Sunday. So you definitely will feel a little bit more watery, a little bit more sensitive, and it's going to be going back over Chiron again in the next few weeks. So definitely that healing is going to be happening again. And then when Venus starts to come out of its shadow, which will be not until May, you definitely will be going over that Chiron again. So look out for relationships being healed, all your relationships. And then when it comes back into Aries, it'll be your relationship with yourself. So good luck, man. You're going into the darkness. You're going into the unknown, But everything is all good because Aries relies on itself very much. So you have the strength to make it through, and you can do it. As I believe that I can. Just continue to believe in yourself and know that you're the most powerful being in your universe. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Goldiamond Astro T Magic. Follow me on Instagram. And also, if you're seeing this on YouTube, click like if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel. And hit the little bell if you want to get an update every time I post a new video. All right, you guys. Much love. Bye.